You ever have one of those moments where you feel like your brain is this incredible supercomputer, but also kind of like a leaky sieve? You know, you can remember every single word to a song you haven't heard in 20 years, but you have absolutely no idea why you just walked into the kitchen. Well, today, we're going to dive deep into that contradiction and explore what are known as the 7 sins of our memory.
I mean, it's a question we've all asked ourselves, right? It is so frustrating. You know the answer is in there somewhere, but you just can't seem to grab it. So why? Why does this happen all the time? Is our memory just broken?
And that, right there, is the huge paradox we're looking at today. Our brains can perform these unbelievable feats of memory, storing literally decades of our lives. And yet, in the very next moment, they can be so unreliable, it's almost funny.
Just think about it for a second. You can probably close your eyes right now and remember the feeling, the sounds, the energy of a huge moment in your life from years ago. But the reason you just opened the fridge door, poof, it's just gone. And look, this isn't just you. This is a core feature of how human memory works.
And get this, it's not just for us regular folks. This quote comes from a U.S. national memory champion. This is someone who can memorize entire decks of cards in minutes, and she says, "I live by Post-its." I mean, if a memory champion needs sticky notes to get through the day, that tells you everything you need to know about this paradox.
So, you have to wonder, are all these little memory failures just random glitches in the system? Well, not according to Harvard psychologist Daniel Schacter. He came up with this really incredible framework that helps us see these failures not as chaos, but as predictable patterns.
He calls them the 7 sins of memory. And by putting them into categories, we can start to see that there's actually a method to our memory's madness. It gives us a map for how our minds work, and, where they sometimes take a wrong turn.
Okay, so let's break this down. Schacter basically splits these sins into 2 big groups. On one side, you've got the sins of omission. Think of this as information just going missing. This includes transience, which is just your memory fading over time. Then there's absent-mindedness. That's when you forget where you put your keys because you just weren't paying attention. And of course, blocking, that awful tip of the tongue feeling. Now, the other group is the sins of commission. This is when your memory is doing something, but it's doing it wrong. It's distorted. This covers misattribution, like you remember a fun fact, but you think your friend told you when you actually saw it on TV. Suggestibility is when outside info messes with your memory. And bias is when how you feel today actually changes how you remember the past. And then there's that last one, persistence, kind of sitting off by itself, and we'll see why in a bit.
All right, now that we have the list, let's put memory on trial. We're going to put a couple of the most, let's say, dramatic sins under the microscope and see just how powerful they can be in the real world.
So first up in our little courtroom is the sin of suggestibility. This is a wild one. It's where the line between what really happened to you and what someone else told you happened gets completely, dangerously blurred.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's Amsterdam, 1992. A cargo plane tragically crashes into an apartment complex. It was a massive, horrific event, and the media covered it wall to wall. You can imagine, for a lot of people, this was a moment that felt like it was burned into their memory forever.
So, about 10 months later, a group of psychologists did a study. They went up to people and asked them a very simple, very direct question. Did you see the film of the plane hitting the building? So, what do you think they said?
More than half of them said yes. They remembered seeing it. Some of them even described it with incredible detail. They talked about the fire, the exact moment of impact. There was just one tiny problem. No such film ever existed. The moment of impact was never, ever caught on video. A single leading question was powerful enough to create a vivid, detailed, and completely false memory in over half the people they asked.
And that, right there, is the heart of suggestibility. It's not really about having a bad memory. It's about our brain's natural instinct to take information from the outside and weave it into the story of our own lives, whether it's true or not. All right, let's move on to our second case. And this one is the total opposite problem. It's not about being unable to remember something. It's about being unable to forget. This is the sin of persistence. This is a really tragic but powerful example. Back in 1986, a pitcher named Donnie Moore gave up a game-losing home run in a huge playoff game. For you and me, for most fans, it's a disappointing sports moment that you forget about. But for him, that one memory wouldn't go away. It persisted. It became this intrusive, haunting thought that he just could not escape, and it ultimately contributed to a tragic end years later. It's just a heartbreaking look at how destructive persistence can be.
So after hearing all that, things look pretty bad, right? I mean, suggestibility can make us remember things that never happened. Persistence can literally torment us. It really does seem like our memory is just fundamentally broken. But this is where the story takes a really fascinating twist.
What if we've been looking at this whole thing completely backwards? Schacter asks this amazing question. What if these 7 sins aren't actually bugs in the system?
And here it is. Here's the verdict from Schacter himself. These sins, as he calls them, are really just the side effects of features that are incredibly useful, features that help us survive. They're not bugs, they're features. They are the trade-offs our brain makes to be efficient, not to be perfect.
Okay, take transience, the sin of just forgetting stuff over time. We think of that as a bad thing, but just imagine for a second if you remembered every single meal you've ever eaten, every commute you've ever taken. Your brain would be completely flooded with useless information. So forgetting isn't a failure, it's an adaptive feature. It's your brain's cleanup crew, throwing out the junk so you can focus on what actually matters.
And let's look at persistence again, the very thing that caused so much pain for Donnie Moore. While it can be destructive, its evolutionary purpose is so clear. Think about it. An animal that has a really strong, vivid memory of a near-death run-in with a predator is way more likely to survive the next time. Persistence is a survival mechanism. It's designed to burn lessons into our brain from highly emotional events to keep us safe.
So, what does all this mean for us? For how we think about our own seemingly flawed memory? Well, it means it's time for a whole new perspective.
Here's the big takeaway. You have to stop thinking of your memory as some kind of perfect video camera that's supposed to record everything with perfect accuracy. It was never built for that. It's a dynamic, messy, inefficient tool that was shaped over millions of years for one primary purpose: to help you survive.
These so-called sins are actually what help us get rid of useless clutter. They help us focus on the big picture instead of tiny details. They allow us to generalize from the past to make better decisions about the future, and they help us learn powerful, life-saving lessons. Our memory trades perfect recall for practical wisdom.
So the next time you forget why you walked into a room, maybe cut yourself some slack. Your brain wasn't failing. It was just making an executive decision that whatever you were going to do wasn't as important as, say, remembering a valuable lesson. Your memory isn't flawed. It's efficient. So here's a thought to leave you with. What sin are you going to forgive your own adaptive memory for today?